They thought she was just another powerless black mom, easy to humiliate, easy to break. In a locked classroom at Westridge High, a group of bullies shaved her head while laughing, ignoring every warning she gave them. But the moment they stepped back, and she lifted her eyes, everything flipped. Because the woman they tried to destroy wasn't just someone's mother, she was a court judge, and their little prank had just turned into a legal nightmare. Actions have consequences, and today, they're about to learn that the hard way. The last bell had already rung, yet the hallway of Westridge High buzzed like a beehive exploding after a stone was thrown into it. Backpacks slammed shut, lockers clanged open and closed, sneakers scattered across the linoleum floor, and voices bounced off the beige walls in layers: gossip, laughter, arguments, secrets. Students pushed past one another as they rushed toward the exits, hungry for freedom. The scent of cafeteria fries lingered faintly in the air, mixing with the earthy smell of dozens of bodies moving through a narrow space. Zuri Ward walked among them as quietly as a breath. 16, tall, slim, and steady, she moved with a quiet confidence that didn't fit the way some students treated her. Her long, braided hair, intricately done in small sections, decorated with gold cuffs, hung over her shoulders like a cultural crown. She knew it made her stand out. She also knew it made her a target. She clutched her notebook to her chest and kept her eyes forward. If she walked fast enough, she could slip out of school before they noticed her. But of course they noticed. Derek Walsh leaned against his locker like he owned the entire hallway. Varsity basketball jacket, smug posture, smirk sharp enough to slice glass. His blue eyes tracked her every step, like a hawk spotting a mouse in an open field. He nudged the girl beside him, Aubrey Lennox, the queen of entitlement, daughter of the school board president, and self-appointed critic of everything she found inferior. "Oh, look," Aubrey said loudly, just enough for everyone in a 5-meter radius to hear. "The braid factory has arrived." Derek laughed, pushing off the locker with deliberate slowness, blocking Zuri's path. "Damn, Zuri. How long does it take to glue all this to your head every morning?" He lifted a finger, circling the air near her hair like she was an exhibit. Zuri's spine stiffened. She moved a step to the left. Derek blocked her again. Aubrey circled behind Zuri, eyeing her braids like they were strands of rope instead of parts of her identity. "I heard these styles started in Africa, right?" she said mockingly. "Guess you brought the whole continent with you." A couple of freshmen snickered. Someone recorded on their phone. Zuri inhaled slowly. She had learned long ago that reacting only made them hungrier. And yet, another part of her, the part that knew exactly who she was, refused to bow. "Excuse me," she said steadily. But Derek wasn't done. He reached out and tugged lightly on one braid, just enough to humiliate, not enough to hurt. "Relax," he teased. "I just want to see if it's real. You people always get offended over everything." Aubrey giggled. "Careful, Derek. She might cast a witch spell on you." Zuri stepped back sharply. Her jaw tightened. Her fingernails pressed half-moons into her palm, the only sign she was holding back a storm. "Don't touch my hair," she said, voice low but controlled. "I'm serious." "Oh, she's serious," Derek mocked. "Aubrey, did you hear that? She's serious." Aubrey leaned close, her perfume sugary and suffocating. "What are you going to do, Zuri? Tell a teacher? No one believes you." And the worst part? Zuri knew that was true. She had tried before. Complaints vanished. Reports were ignored. All because Aubrey's father happened to fund the school's new science wing. Still, Zuri lifted her chin. For the first time that afternoon, her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "I warned you already," she said. "Don't cross the line." Something in her eyes made Derek pause for half a second. But half a second was all he allowed before the smirk returned. "My bad," he said, stepping aside, making an exaggerated bow so she could pass. Zuri didn't break eye contact until the last moment. Then she walked away, letting the crowd swallow her again. A hush trailed behind her, quiet, tense, electric. Some students looked impressed. Some looked confused. But no one, not even Zuri, noticed the dark spark that flickered in Derek's expression. Aubrey leaned in. "What's with your face?" she whispered. Derek's eyes followed Zuri until she turned the corner and disappeared. Something dangerous slid into his smile. Something shaped like revenge and inflated ego. He brought his lips close to Aubrey's ear. "Tomorrow," he murmured, "I'll show her who gets to warn who." Aubrey's grin widened, shining with cruelty. "Oh? You have a plan?" "Oh, yeah," Derek replied, tapping his finger casually on his backpack zipper. "And trust me, she won't forget it." Aubrey laughed, covering her mouth. "This is going to be fun." If the hallway had been quieter, students might have heard the beginning of a scheme forming sharp, ugly, venomous. But life at Westridge High was too loud for warnings, too chaotic to sense danger. Zuri pushed open the school doors and stepped into the late afternoon sunlight. For a moment, she let herself breathe. She thought she had survived today. She thought Derek's obsession with humiliating her ended in the hallway. She was wrong. Very wrong. Because behind her, a plan had been set in motion, one that would cross every boundary, break every rule, and drag her mother into the center of a storm no one could control. A storm that had already begun. From one whisper in a hallway, the entire world would tilt, and nothing would ever be the same again. Zuri walked home, unaware that Derek and Aubrey had already begun preparing something far more cruel than words. Something that would ignite the biggest scandal Westridge High had ever seen. Evening settled over the Ward household like a soft blanket calm on the surface, hiding a quiet tension beneath. The single-story home, tucked on a quiet corner street, glowed warmly from the inside. Lamps hummed gently, casting gold light across tidy bookshelves and framed certificates, a mosaic of Judge Helena Ward's achievements. The place radiated discipline and pride, the kind that came from years of fighting battles in courtrooms where the stakes were life-altering. But in the living room, Zuri sat, curled on the couch with her knees pressed against her chest, staring blankly at the muted television. The flickering images played across her face, but she wasn't watching. Her mind replayed the hallway incident on a loop, Derek's fingers gripping her braid, Aubrey's voice dripping with mockery. The feeling of dozens of eyes on her like needles. She wanted to tell someone. She wanted to tell her mother. But timing was everything. And tonight, her mother was exhausted. At the dining table, Judge Helena Ward sat surrounded by stacks of folders, highlighted documents, and notes scribbled in the margins of thick case files. She was preparing for the school's Law Education Day, a mock trial where she'd be presenting to students about justice, responsibility, and the weight of lawful decisions. It was something she did voluntarily every year, believing, fiercely, that if young people understood fairness early, they'd grow into better adults. Tonight, though, Helena's posture sagged with fatigue. Her glasses slid slightly down her nose as she reviewed a binder with intense focus. A near-empty cup of coffee sat beside her elbow, the steam long gone. Zuri opened her mouth once, closed it, opened it again. "Mom," she said finally. Helena looked up immediately. Despite the exhaustion etched on her face, her attention sharpened the way it always did when Zuri spoke, warm, focused, present. "Yes, sweetheart?" Zuri hesitated. Words jammed in her throat like traffic. She wanted to say everything. "They pulled my hair. They humiliated me. They think nobody will stop them. I'm scared of what might happen tomorrow." But instead, Zuri glanced at the towering stack of documents her mother still had to review. The dark circles under her eyes, the slight tremble in her hand each time she turned a page. She swallowed the truth. "It's nothing," she lied gently. "I just wanted to check on you." Helena gave a soft smile, the kind that made people in courtrooms think she was unshakable. But Zuri knew better. That smile also meant she was pushing through exhaustion. "You don't have to worry about me," Helena said. "Tomorrow is just a school demonstration. I'll be fine." Zuri nodded, but silence drifted between them like fog. Helena's smile slowly faded when she noticed her daughter's unusual quietness. Zuri was usually composed, but she wasn't withdrawn. She wasn't this muted. "Zuri," Helena said softly, adjusting her glasses. Are you okay? You look unsettled. Zuri's breath caught, just for a moment. In her head she heard Derek's voice again. Tomorrow, I'll show her who gets to warn who. A chill rippled down her spine, but she forced a steady tone. I'm fine, Mom. Helena didn't buy it completely. A mother always knows. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, not sharply, but with concern. Something happened at school? Zuri shook her head quickly. No, nothing like that. Helena watched her for a beat too long, clearly not convinced. But she didn't push. She knew pushing could close more doors than it opened. All right, Helena said eventually. But if anything is wrong, you come to me. Always. Zuri nodded, eyes dropping to her hands. I know. She stood to walk away, then paused near the doorway. Without turning back, she said, Mom, tomorrow, don't come to school late, okay? Helena blinked, confused. I won't. Why? Zuri shook her head again. Just don't. A fragile plea hidden behind a simple instruction. Helena smiled lightly. I'll be there on time. I promise. But Zuri didn't smile back. She walked into her room and closed the door carefully, softly, so it wouldn't worry her mother any further, but firmly enough to shut out the weight of the world pressing on her. Inside the dimly lit room, she sank onto her bed and hugged her pillow. She wanted tomorrow to come and go quickly. She wanted Derek to forget his words. She wanted the day to be normal. But deep down, in the quiet place inside her that rarely lied, Zuri knew tomorrow wouldn't be normal. It would be worse. Much worse. Meanwhile, in the dining room, Helena massaged her temples and rubbed her eyes. She had no idea that her daughter's strange request was more than teenage nerves. She had no idea that showing up at the school tomorrow, something she'd done countless times, would trigger a chain reaction she couldn't control. A chain reaction that would tear the mask off Westridge High and expose the rot beneath. A chain reaction that would put her literally under attack. But Helena only sighed, closed the binder, and whispered to herself, one more hour, then I'll sleep. The house fell into a tired, uneasy quiet. Miles away, on the other side of town, Derek Walsh and Aubrey Lennox walked into a convenience store lit by harsh fluorescent lights. Derek wore a grin too wide for his face. Aubrey scrolled through her phone, checking how many people had liked the story she posted mocking Zuri earlier. What exactly are we buying? Aubrey asked, following Derek down the haircare aisle. Derek stopped, reached out deliberately, and grabbed a small black box from the shelf, a box containing an electric hair clipper. Aubrey's smile twisted into something darker. You're kidding. Nope, Derek said, tapping the box against his palm. Tomorrow, Zuri's gonna learn what a real warning looks like. They both laughed. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, their cold glow reflecting off the hair clipper box, an innocent object in the wrong hands, about to become the tool of a cruelty neither of them fully understood. Helena had no idea that her presence at the school tomorrow wouldn't prevent the coming storm, it would summon it. And as Derek and Aubrey left the store with the tong de in hand, the night grew heavier because the real danger was no longer just words. It was action. Morning sunlight spilled across the Westridge High campus, warm and bright, as if trying to disguise the truth lurking beneath the school's polished exterior. Students filed into classrooms with chatter and laughter echoing through the corridors. But deeper inside the building, away from the noise, the mock courtroom waited silent, still, and untouched. A place meant for lessons about justice, fairness, and law. Today, it would become the opposite. Zuri walked beside her mother, Judge Helena Ward, as they approached the double doors of the mock courtroom. Helena's stride was firm, controlled, the same confident walk she used when entering a real courtroom. But today, she offered her daughter a softer smile. Thank you for inviting me again, Helena said as she adjusted the collar of her black blazer. I always enjoy speaking to your classmates. Zuri nodded, though her stomach twisted with a quiet dread. She had barely slept. Derek's words from yesterday pulsed in her mind like a bruise. Tomorrow, I'll show her who gets to warn who. Helena caught the flicker of worry on her daughter's face. Are you sure everything is okay? Zuri forced a small smile. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth. Inside the mock courtroom, the space resembled a small-scale version of a real trial chamber: wooden benches, a judge's podium, a witness stand, even small flags behind the desk. It was meant to inspire students to understand the justice system. But today, its symbolism would be twisted. Waiting near the front were Derek Walsh and Aubrey Lennox. Derek wore a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Aubrey stood with crossed arms, her posture dripping arrogance. And a few feet away was Mr. Collins, the school's principal, hands clasped behind his back. Suit pressed neatly, expression unreadable. Derek's gaze locked onto Zuri immediately. Then, slowly, he shifted his eyes to Helena. Aubrey leaned close, lips curling into a smirk. Showtime? Derek whispered back, low enough for only Aubrey to hear. She's going to watch her mother get taught a lesson right in here. Zuri stiffened. She didn't hear the words, but she felt their malice rippling through the air. Helena, unaware, stepped forward to greet Principal Collins. Good morning, Mr. Collins. Collins blinked, forced a smile, and extended his hand. Judge Ward, thank you again for volunteering. The students benefit greatly from your perspective. His tone was overly sweet, artificial, almost sticky. Zuri felt her mother tense beside her but didn't comment. Behind Collins, Derek shifted, adjusting his backpack. The zipper caught the light. As he moved, something metallic peeked out, black plastic, shiny, unmistakable, a hair clipper. Mr. Collins saw it. He saw it clearly. His eyes flicked down, widened for a split second, then narrowed again. Zuri noticed his reaction, but he said nothing. He did nothing. He simply turned away. It was a betrayal so silent, so quick, so subtle that Zuri wasn't sure she had even witnessed it. Helena walked toward the podium at the front. Several students were already seated, notebooks open, ready to listen. Some whispered in awe this was the real Judge Ward, a woman known for fairness and sharp rulings. But Derek wasn't watching Helena as a role model. He was watching her as prey. Zuri sat in the front row, eyes flicking from Derek to Collins to Aubrey, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. Helena started speaking, her voice steady and warm. Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to talk to you about how justice. But Derek's low chuckle cut through the room like a blade. Justice, he muttered to Aubrey. Perfect, Aubrey snorted. Fitting, right? They thought they were whispering quietly. But Zuri heard, and her heart slammed against her ribs. During a break between segments of Helena's talk, Mr. Collins moved toward the door. He placed his hand on the handle. For the sake of the presentation, he said loudly, for the room to hear, I'm going to close the door so no one interrupts us. He didn't wait for questions. He didn't wait for objections. He simply closed the door. And then, click, the lock slid into place. Zuri's breath caught sharply. Why did he lock it? Aubrey turned around just enough for Zuri to catch her smile. Relax, she whispered. You'll understand soon. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, casting a pale glow across the wooden courtroom furniture. Helena lifted her notes again, unaware of the shift in energy. She continued her talk, her voice steady and full of conviction. But Zuri's eyes stayed on Derek, who slowly unzipped his backpack. A cold metallic hum echoed in the room, the faint vibration of an electric trimmer switching on for a moment as Derek tested it under the desk. The sound too low for most to notice, but sharp enough to slice straight into Zuri's bones. She whipped her head toward Mr. Collins. He said nothing. He looked away. He let it happen. Had just landed. The principal trusted authority, protector of students, had seen the weapon and chosen silence, all because Aubrey's father funded the school. All because convenience outweighed morality. Zuri's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run to her mother. She wanted to drag Helena out of the room, but she couldn't move. Fear rooted her in place. Helena continued speaking, unaware that danger sat 10 feet behind her, watching, waiting, smiling. The mock courtroom designed to teach justice now felt like a cage, and the door was locked. The irony was suffocating. A room built for justice was about to witness one of the cruelest injustices Westridge High had ever allowed. And as Helena turned her back to the class to gather her notes, Collins stepped farther away from the door, not guarding it, but abandoning it, leaving Derek and Aubrey with nothing between them and the crime they were about to commit. The mock courtroom felt colder than before. Not physically, no vent had shifted, no window had opened, but the atmosphere had turned heavy, pressing down on every student like an invisible weight. It was the kind of silence that warned of an approaching storm, the kind that made the air feel electrically charged. Helena stood at the front of the room, her back straight, posture dignified, reviewing her notes. She was preparing to explain due process, how fairness protects every citizen, how systems should prevent injustice. And behind her, injustice was rising like a shadow. Derek looked up from his seat, eyes narrowing as he watched the curve of Helena's braid resting neatly against her blazer. He glanced sideways at Aubrey. "Ready?" he whispered. Aubrey's grin spread slowly, wickedly. "Do it. She deserves it for raising that little attitude problem out there." Derek pushed his chair back, the scrape echoing across the polished floor. Helena didn't hear it. She was mid-sentence. "And when we think about responsibility, we must." The moment she turned slightly to adjust a chart on the board, Derek stood. He moved quietly, predatory, stepping closer until he stood directly behind her. Zuri noticed first. She was seated near the aisle, watching her mother closely. She saw Derek rise. She saw him close the distance. Her heart seized. "Mom," she started, half standing, but her voice was drowned out by a sudden burst of cruel laughter. Aubrey shot to her feet, pointing dramatically at Helena. "Hey everyone, look!" she shouted. "The judge forgot to judge her own daughter." The class froze. Heads turned. Confusion rippled across faces. Helena looked over her shoulder, puzzled. "Excuse me?" And that tiny moment of distraction, that fraction of a second, was all Derek needed. He reached out, grabbed a full section of Helena's neatly braided hair, and yanked. Hard. Helena gasped, stumbling forward, her hand flying to her scalp. A sharp pain stabbed through her skull, violent and unexpected. The room erupted. Some students screamed, some laughed. Some froze in horror. Zuri felt something inside her snap. "Stop!" she yelled, jumping to her feet so fast her chair toppled over. Aubrey clapped mockingly, her voice rising above the chaos. "That's right. Your daughter's gonna learn what happens when she opens her little mouth at this school." Zuri bolted toward the exit. She didn't think. She didn't breathe. She just ran. The door. She needed to get help. But when her hands hit the handle click, it didn't move. She twisted harder. Nothing. She slammed her shoulder against it, panic flooding her chest. "Open! Somebody open the door!" Inside, Derek held the braid in his fist, smirking with a sick triumph. Helena straightened slowly, her posture more wounded pride than physical pain. Her eyes turned sharp, cold, controlled. "Put that down," she said calmly. Too calmly. Derek shrugged. "Nah, I think we'll keep going." Aubrey lifted her phone like she was filming a comedy skit. "Smile, judge." The class was divided, some horrified, some frozen, some whispering, some pulling out their phones like spectators at a circus. Zuri pounded the door again. "Let me in! Let me in now!" Her voice cracked, desperation spilling through the wood. Inside, Derek unzipped his backpack with theatrical slowness. The metallic gleam appeared first, cold, sharp, unmistakable. A hair clipper. Aubrey squealed in excitement. "Oh my God! You brought it!" Helena's eyes widened, not with fear, but disbelief. "What do you think you're doing?" Derek flicked the switch. Bzzz. The vibration filled the room. A sinister hum. A warning. A promise. The sound sliced through the courtroom like a blade of electric menace. Zuri screamed through the door, tears rising. "Mom! Get away from him!" She twisted the handle again until her palm burned. She kicked the door, hit it with both fists. Nothing budged. From behind her, footsteps approached rapidly. "Zuri, what's happening?" a voice called. She wheeled around. Kai, a quiet kid, usually invisible, but now, he stared at the locked door, worry etched across his face. "They locked it," Zuri said, shaking. "They locked it. And Derek, he has something. Please help me." Kai rushed forward and tried the handle himself, but it didn't move. Inside the room, Aubrey's voice rose again, cruel and sharp. "Let's see how professional a judge looks after a little haircut." Students gasped. Some stepped back. Some recorded. Derek lifted the buzzing clipper toward Helena's head. Helena didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't show fear. She only said one sentence, low, steady, full of steel. "I warned you. Do not touch me again." Derek leaned closer, grinning. "And I warned you. This school belongs to us." Zuri shoved her shoulder against the door so hard she felt something crack inside her arm. "No! Stop! Mom!" She turned to Kai, breathless. "Go find someone. Break a window. Do something." Kai pulled out his phone instantly. I'll call for help. I swear." He ran down the hallway. Zuri kept slamming the door, her fists bruising, her breath shaking, her voice ragged. "Mom! I'm right here. Mom, please." But inside the room, Derek stepped closer with the buzzing clipper mere inches from Helena's scalp. Only seconds left. Only inches remaining. The distance between the clipper and Helena's hair was shrinking 5 inches. 4. 3 every breath, bringing them closer to the moment humiliation would become irreversible. And as Zuri's screams echoed violently through the hallway, Kai reached the corner, phone in hand, camera recording, and captured the exact moment that would change everything. The hallway outside the mock courtroom echoed with the frantic rhythm of Zuri's fists slamming against the locked door. Her breaths came in sharp, choked bursts, each one carrying a tremor of terror. Inside, the buzzing clippers grew louder, hungrier, a cruel soundtrack to a violation about to unfold. Zuri pressed her face against the narrow glass panel, eyes wide, heart thrashing inside her chest like a creature desperate to escape. "Stop! Please stop!" she screamed, her palms flat against the cold surface. But the room had become its own world, sealed off by Collins and the silence of complicity. Behind her, Kai appeared again, breathless, shaken, but this time with a different resolve in his eyes. I can't get any teachers," he stammered. "They're all in a meeting. No one's in the hallway. But," he lifted his phone, "I can record. I can get proof." Zuri grabbed his arm. "Then record everything." Kai nodded, swallowing hard. Then he stepped closer to the narrow strip of glass beside Zuri and raised his phone slowly, carefully, angling the lens between the frame and the door. Inside, Derek held the buzzing clipper like a weapon he'd been waiting years to wield. The students around him were frozen, some horrified, some laughing, some recording, some too scared to intervene. Aubrey paced excitedly beside him, her voice rising like she was hosting a reality show. "Come on, Derek! Do it already! Teach her a lesson!" Helena stood perfectly still, refusing to lean away, refusing to break. Only her eyes moved steely, unyielding, full of a dignity that not even a room full of cruelty could crack. Derek leaned in, and in the hallway, Zuri's heartbeat stopped. "No!" But the sound inside drowned her out. Bzzzzz snip. The clippers bit into Helena's braid. A thick, dark section of hair fell forward, sliding off her shoulder. It landed against her judge's robe, with a soft thud. Too soft for a moment so violent. Students gasped. Some choked. Some laughed. Aubrey clapped her hands like a child receiving a gift. "Oh my God, Derek, you actually did it." Zuri dropped to her knees outside the door, her screams strangled by grief and rage. The sound that escaped her throat wasn't a word, it was a wound. Inside, Helena reached up slowly and touched the severed end of her hair. The braid was gone, just a frayed, uneven patch remained. But when she lifted her chin, she didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She didn't recoil. She looked directly at Derek. Her voice came out low, calm, and terrifyingly clear. I warned you." The words cut deeper than any blade. Derek froze for a second. For the first time, hesitation flickered in his eyes. Aubrey stepped in quickly, nudging him. "What? Are you scared now? Keep going. Finish what you started." But Derek's smirk returned, thinner this time, more forced. He lifted the clippers again. Outside the door, Kai's hands shook as he filmed, but he didn't stop. He zoomed in, capturing everything: Helena's composure, Derek's aggression, Aubrey's taunts. Then he shifted the angle. Through the narrow left side of the glass, something moved in the corner. Kai zoomed out slightly and saw Collins, the principal, standing by the far wall earlier in the scene, his hand on the doorknob, his face glancing toward the hallway. Then the moment he turned the lock, knowingly, deliberately, Kai's breath caught. He whispered, barely audible. He locked it. He really locked it. Zuri spun toward him. "What? What are you talking about?" Kai replayed the few seconds of footage he captured. It was shaky, but clear enough. Collins glanced down the hallway, then quietly turned the lock. Proof. Absolute proof. Zuri covered her mouth, tears spilling hot down her cheeks. He trapped her in there. Inside, the humiliation continued. Aubrey lifted Helena's severed braid with 2 fingers, swinging it like a trophy. "Look! Someone get a picture of this!" Laughter rose, mockery grew, but Helena remained a pillar silent strength in the center of a storm. And Kai kept filming. Every second, every angle, every cruelty. He filmed Derek raising the clippers again. He filmed Helena refusing to cower. He filmed Aubrey taunting Zuri through the glass. He filmed the students who egged them on. He filmed every detail the school would try to deny. Zuri grabbed Kai's wrist. "Send me the video. Now." Kai nodded and hit share. In the reflection of the glass, Zuri's face appeared, eyes burning with fury and pain, as her mother's humiliation replayed in miniature on Kai's phone screen during the transfer. Inside, Derek stepped closer again, clippers buzzing louder, hungrier. "I'm not done," he said. Helena's voice sharpened like a blade. "Yes, you are." Aubrey's eyes widened. "What's that supposed?" But Kai didn't hear the rest, because his phone chimed transfer complete. He turned to Zuri. It's sent." Zuri wiped her face with trembling hands. "Good," she whispered, voice breaking. "Because this changes everything." And she meant it, because in her hands now was the spark that would ignite the downfall of everyone inside that room. What Kai captured wasn't just a video. It was evidence. Evidence powerful enough to tear open the truth, expose the lies, and drag Westridge High into a battle it could never hide from again. And as Derek lifted the clippers for a second cut, Zuri rose to her feet, rage replacing fear, just as the hallway erupted with footsteps rushing toward the scene. For a moment, the world inside the mock courtroom froze. Helena standing tall with half her braids severed, Derek holding the buzzing clippers, Aubrey wearing triumph like a crown, and the stunned students watching a nightmare unfold in a room meant for justice. Then, a thunderous crack split through the hallway. Zuri flinched, her tear-streaked face snapping toward the source. A second crack, louder this time, shook the door. Wood splintered around the metal latch. Teachers had finally heard the chaos. A voice roared from the hallway. "Move back! Step away from the door!" Zuri stumbled aside as 2 staff members, the math teacher, Mr. Lin, and the PE coach, Miss Howard, rammed their shoulders into the locked frame. Boom! The hinges creaked. Boom! The lock strained. Inside, Derek spun around, startled. Aubrey's smile faltered. Helena didn't move. She stood, still as a monument, braid fragments scattered on her robe like fallen feathers. Outside, Zuri screamed, "Break it! Please break the door!" One final strike. Boom! The lock gave way. The door flew inward. A spray of wooden shards burst across the floor, and suddenly the room was flooded with adults. Shouts and confusion. Students scrambled backward. Chairs screeched. Phones dropped. Even Derek instinctively stepped away from Helena, the clippers still buzzing in his shaking hand. Miss Howard pointed at him immediately. "Drop that! Now!" Derek panicked. "It's not what it looks like. She agreed to this. It's for TikTok. Everyone does this." Gasps rippled through the room. Helena finally turned her head, slowly, powerfully. Even with half her hair missing, she was impossibly composed, like a storm gathering strength in perfect silence. She stepped forward. Students parted instinctively, as if pushed aside by the force of her presence. Her gaze locked onto Derek, then on Aubrey, then on the principal, Collins, who had just arrived breathless, pretending to be shocked. Helena's voice was low, steady, and cold enough to freeze the air. "I did not agree to anything. I did not permit anything. And I warned each of you not to touch me." Her eyes cut to Collins. "And you locked that door." Collins blanched. "Judge Ward, please, let's not make accusations." Helena raised a hand, silencing him. "I'll let the evidence make them." Derek pointed the clippers toward Helena like a shield. "No, she's lying! She let me do it! Ask anyone!" Everyone looked at the roomful of trembling students. No one backed him. Not even the ones who recorded. Not even the ones who laughed. Not even Aubrey. Zuri forced her way through the crowd and ran to her mother. The moment she reached her, she collapsed into Helena's arms, sobbing. "Mom, I tried to stop them." Helena embraced her gently. "I know. You did everything you could." Derek, panicked and sweating, tried again to defend himself. "We were just doing a prank. She wasn't even mad. Look at her. She didn't even scream." Helena stepped forward, and the entire room seemed to shrink under the weight of her presence. "Screaming," she said quietly, "is what guilty people expect from their victims." She stared into Derek's eyes, unblinking, razor sharp. "But I don't scream. I don't run. And I don't beg." She paused. "I let the law speak for me." A silence so heavy fell across the room that even the buzzing clippers seemed to dim. Finally, Helena lifted her chin. "Put those clippers down. Derek, you're finished here." Derek's palms were slick. The device shook. He didn't drop it, he fumbled, and it clattered to the floor, the buzz dying with one last mechanical sigh. Miss Howard moved in, grabbing Derek by the arm. "You're coming with me," Aubrey shrieked, pointing at Helena. "This is all her fault. She's blowing this up. My dad will fix this. You'll see." Helena turned slightly. "I look forward to meeting him." Aubrey froze. It was the tone, calm, lethal, judicial, the tone of someone who didn't lose battles. Mr. Lin knelt beside Helena. "Judge Ward, are you all right? Do you need medical assistance?" Helena exhaled slowly, touching the jagged ends of her severed braids. "No," she said. "What I need is accountability." Behind her, students whispered frantically. "Did you see what they did? He cut her hair. This is serious, like criminal serious." "I can't believe the principal didn't stop it." Collins swallowed hard. I wasn't." Helena turned to him sharply. "Do not lie to my face. I know what you did, and what you didn't do." Before Collins could respond, a voice echoed from the hallway. Kai. His face was pale, but his hands were steady as he held up his phone. I recorded everything," he said quietly. "Everything. From the moment Derek stood up, to when you locked the door, Mr. Collins." A gasp exploded across the room. Collins stepped back, panic flickering across his features. "You misunderstood. I never. That's illegal. You can't." Aubrey screamed. "Delete it!" Kai shook his head. "No, people need to see the truth." Miss Howard's grip tightened on Derek's arm. "Let's move." As they escorted him out, Derek twisted around and yelled desperately, "She let me do it! She let me!" Everyone knows it was just a joke. No one believed him. Not anymore. Not after seeing Helena's half-shorn hair. Not after hearing her voice quiet, devastating. Not after witnessing Derek's smirk vanish the moment authority arrived. Helena stepped to the center of the room, her daughter still holding onto her side, trembling. She surveyed the classroom, students, teachers, principal. Then she said, voice like steel, "This will not be handled inside the school. This will be handled by the law. A shiver ran through everyone, because they knew exactly what that meant. Helena Ward was not just a mother, not just a victim, not just a judge. She was the storm. Miss Howard and Mr. Lynn guided Derek and Aubrey out of the room, followed by a wave of whispers and horrified glances. Zuri wiped her tears, breathing hard. "It's over, right?" Helena placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "No," she said quietly. "This is only the beginning." Everyone thought the nightmare ended with the broken door, but Helena knew better, because the real battle wasn't inside this room, it was outside, where evidence, corruption, and truth were about to collide. As the courtroom emptied, Kai slipped away into the hallway, opened a private browser, and anonymously uploaded the video that would ignite a firestorm no one at Westridge High could contain. The moment the world finds out. The sun hadn't even reached its peak when the first tremor hit Westridge High. It came in the form of a notification, just one on a sophomore's phone. As she crossed the courtyard, Anonymous posted a new video. She clicked it absent-mindedly. Then she froze. The clip wasn't a prank. It wasn't a meme. It wasn't even a typical hallway fight. It was Derek Walsh cutting off a black woman's hair. A woman in a judge's robe. A woman who did not fight back. A woman who simply said, "I warned you." Within seconds, the sophomore gasped loudly enough for others to look over. She held her phone out, showing the 5-second mark of the clip where Derek raised the clipper like a weapon. 2 more students leaned in. Then 5. Then 10. By the time the bell rang for passing period, the entire courtyard buzzed with disbelief. "Is that Judge Ward? Holy, this is real. Why would he do that? Isn't she a district judge? Isn't that, like, a felony?" Phones lit the air like constellations. And then, like wildfire catching in a dry forest, the hashtag exploded. Number justice for Judge Ward. At first, it was a ripple, then a wave, then a tidal force. Students across the school reshared the clip, screen recorded it, slowed it down, zoomed in, particularly on the moment Collins locked the door. A few gasped when they saw his face clearly turning the knob. That part hit harder than anything. The principal locked her inside? He let it happen? Bro, we're all getting transferred after this. Within 20 minutes, the clip reached the broader town. Parents received it. Alumni saw it. Local group chats lit up. "Is this Westridge? This cannot be real. Please tell me this is edited." "That's Judge Helena Ward. She's a public official." And then, the wildfire crossed state lines. Twitter picked it up. Instagram Reels recycled it. TikTok stitched it with commentary. Creators reacted. Activists reposted. Lawyers weighed in. One criminal attorney's video already reached 100K views. Cutting a woman's hair without consent is assault. Doing it while she's wearing judicial attire? That's a whole different level of legal consequences. Another influencer said, "And the principal locked the door? This is corruption. This is child endangerment. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Back inside Westridge High, Principal Collins stood stiffly at his office window, watching clusters of students huddled in circles, all staring at their phones. His secretary burst through the door. "Sir, there's a video." "I've seen it," he snapped, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "It's nothing more than a manipulated clip. Teenagers are good at editing." But the panic in his voice betrayed him. He opened his laptop and pulled up the video. Again, the 5-second mark, Collins himself turning the lock. "Deep fake," he muttered weakly. "Has to be." But even he didn't believe it. His door swung open again. "Mr. Collins?" a teacher exclaimed breathlessly. Reporters are outside the front gate." "What? Already? They said they're here about Judge Ward." Collins slammed his laptop shut. "Tell them to leave. This is a school, not a circus." But the teacher shook her head. "They're not leaving. And parents are arriving too." Collins pushed past her, storming into the hallway. He wasn't ready. Nothing could have prepared him for the scene waiting outside. A cluster of reporters stood behind the gate, microphones raised, cameras already rolling. Principal Collins, did you knowingly allow the assault of a black judge? Is it true you locked the door? What do you say to allegations of administrative negligence? Parents crowded behind them, furious and demanding answers. One mother shouted, "My daughter goes here. How could you let this happen?" Students filmed everything, shouting, "Explain the clip. Admit you locked it. We want accountability." Collins raised both hands, voice trembling. "That video is not accurate. It has clear signs of digital alteration. Our tech department agrees." A junior yelled from the steps, "Boy, we don't have a tech department." Laughter and outrage erupted. A reporter jumped forward. "Sir, multiple students confirm the authenticity of the clip. Are you accusing your own students of lying?" Collins froze. He had no answer. Inside the school, students swarmed the hallways. Every conversation became a debate. Teachers attempted to quiet rumors, but the truth already had wings. Zuri, standing alone near the lockers, felt the eyes of hundreds on her, some sympathetic, some shocked, some afraid, but she didn't care. She only cared about her mother still sitting in Miss Howard's office, silent but composed, a queen without her crown. Kai approached hesitantly. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Zuri nodded stiffly. "Thank you. For recording. If you didn't..." Kai shook his head. "I just reacted. You were the brave one." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. A notification. "Your video has been reshared 40,000 times. Number Justice for Judge Ward, trending number 3, inches the state." Zuri's breath caught. This is big," Kai whispered. "It has to be," Zuri replied. "People need to know what they did." Collins sank into his chair, sweating, overwhelmed by the chaos spiraling beyond his control. His phone rang. He recognized the number instantly. Aubrey Lennox's father, the school board president. He answered, with forced calm. "Sir, I assure you this situation is being handled." A cold voice cut through the speaker. "Handled? My daughter is in that video. My name is trending because of your negligence. Fix this before it ruins us." Collins clenched his fist. I'm trying." But outside his office window, a reporter lifted a microphone, and then, the inevitable words, "We have confirmation that Derek Walsh and Aubrey Lennox's parents have arrived on campus." Collins paled. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. The video didn't just expose the truth. It detonated it. And now, with reporters at the gates and angry parents flooding the school, Westridge High was about to face a reckoning it could no longer hide from. And as the shouting outside grew louder, the parents of Derek and Aubrey stepped onto school grounds, faces tight, voices sharp, ready to defend their children at any cost. The confrontation begins. The emergency conference room at Westridge High had never felt so small. The long oval table, usually reserved for routine academic meetings, was now ringed with tension so thick it seemed to pulse in the fluorescent light. The blinds were half drawn, letting narrow slashes of sunlight cut across the carpet like interrogation beams. At one end sat Principal Collins, flustered, sweating through his collar, his tie crooked from running back and forth all morning. To his right sat Mr. and Mrs. Walsh, Derek's parents. Mr. Walsh, a stocky man with a booming voice and a short temper. Mrs. Walsh, arms crossed, jaw clenched, her expression stuck somewhere between denial and indignation. On the opposite side sat Mr. Lennox, Aubrey's father, the school board president, his designer suit crisp, his lips curled as if the chair beneath him were beneath him as well. Aubrey's mother sat beside him, silent but bristling, and at the center of the opposite side of the table sat Judge Helena Ward, posture straight, aura unshaken, even with half her hair unevenly cut. Next to her, Zuri held her mother's hand tightly, fingers trembling but grip unbroken. A silence, thick and electric, stretched across the room. Finally, Collins cleared his throat. "Well, thank you all for coming on such short notice. We're here to discuss..." But he didn't get another word out. Mr. Walsh slammed his fist onto the table. "This is ridiculous. Derek is being unfairly targeted. Mrs. Walsh leaned forward sharply. He is a child, for God's sake. Teenagers make mistakes. Mister, Lennox added coolly, and this entire situation is being blown wildly out of proportion. My daughter would never participate in something malicious. Helena said nothing. Her silence was more powerful than their noise. Collins tried again, his voice cracking. Ladies and gentlemen, please. But the parents were only getting louder. Mr. Walsh pointed angrily toward Helena. I'm sorry about your hair, but you escalated this. If you hadn't reacted the way you did, none of this would be news. Mrs. Walsh nodded vigorously. Exactly. You're a public official, you should know how to stay calm. Zuri inhaled sharply, outrage flashing across her face, but Helena gently squeezed her hand, signaling her to stay silent. Mr. Lennox leaned back in his chair, smirking. This is nothing but a misunderstanding. And the fact that it's already on social media? That tells me someone is trying to make this bigger than it needs to be. He turned his cold gaze to Helena. You should have come to us privately. Instead, you allowed this circus. At that moment, something shifted behind Helena's eyes, a sharpened edge, a glint of steel. She slowly folded her hands on the table. I'd like to clarify a few things, she said simply. Her voice was calm, too calm. A silence fell instantly. Mr. Walsh scoffed. Clarify? There's nothing? Helena lifted a small digital recorder and set it gently on the table. A tiny click echoed through the room as she pressed play. A crackle of audio. Then, tomorrow, I'll show her who gets to warn who. Derek Walsh, Mrs. Walsh went wide-eyed. That isn't. But Helena raised her hand politely for silence. Another clip began, the unmistakable sound of the hair clipper powering on, followed by Derek's voice, louder now, dripping with arrogance. Let's teach her a lesson. Show her who runs this school. Zuri watched the parents' faces drain of color. Shock cracked through their certainty like lightning. Mr. Walsh stammered. That doesn't prove anything, kids say things. Helena pressed another button. More audio played. Aubrey's voice this time. Come on, Derek, do it. Teach her daughter who's in charge here. Mrs. Lennox gasped, hand flying to her chest. Mr. Lennox's eyes narrowed sharply, but not in denial. No. This time, it was fear. Fear of what this would cost him. Helena paused the audio. Silence swallowed the room. Everyone stared. Helena leaned forward slightly. Her voice didn't rise, didn't shake, didn't falter. It sliced through the silence like a blade. This was not a prank. She turned to Derek's parents. Your son did not act impulsively. Then to Mr. Lennox, your daughter encouraged him. Then to Collins, and you allowed it. Collins's face turned white. But before he could speak, Helena continued. But the most important fact is this. My lack of screaming does not equal consent. My composure does not absolve your children. Zuri felt a chill run down her spine. She'd seen her mother rule in court, but this was different. This was personal. Mrs. Walsh's voice trembled. Judge Ward, we're very sorry for what happened, but you're making this sound criminal. Helena cut in smoothly. It was criminal. Mr. Walsh leaned back, shaking his head. No judge will side with you if you make this a legal matter. Helena met his eyes, unblinking. I am a judge. He swallowed hard. Helena pressed play on one final clip. It was shorter, quieter, more damning. Kai's recording of Collins turning the lock. Click, metal sliding into place. Then Derek's voice in the background. No one's getting in. We own this room today. Something inside Mr. Lennox cracked. His polished composure slipped as he leaned forward, face reddening. Why was that door locked? He demanded, turning to Collins. Did you authorize that? Did you lock a judge in with students? Collins sputtered. I didn't, it wasn't, I was trying to prevent disruptions. Helena finished the sentence for him. No, you locked it because your board member here told you to keep quiet and protect his daughter's reputation. A punch of silence hit the room. Mrs. Lennox turned to her husband slowly. Is that true? He didn't answer, which meant everything. Mrs. Walsh covered her face with trembling hands. Mr. Walsh sank into his chair. Aubrey's mother whispered, "Oh God." Mr. Lennox finally spoke, his voice cracking for the first time. "What happens now?" Helena stood, every eye lifted to her, a judge rising to deliver a verdict. "We convene," she said calmly. Immediately, her eyes swept the room. A disciplinary council. Full attendance. Full accountability. The parents didn't argue. They couldn't. Not after what they'd heard. For the first time, fear flickered across the bullies' parents' faces, not fear of scandal, but fear of justice. Helena had turned the tide, and this battle was far from over. As the shaken group filed out, phones buzzed simultaneously, a notification from the district. An emergency disciplinary hearing had just been scheduled. It was time for the reckoning to begin. Power begins to shift. The boardroom of Westridge High was never meant for battles of this scale. Yet today, under the harsh fluorescent lights and the stern portraits of past administrators, the room felt like an arena where truth, denial, authority, and fear collided with every breath. A long mahogany table sat in the center, surrounded by rigid-backed chairs, now filled with the faces of the school's disciplinary council. Their expressions varied: concern, anger, embarrassment, and in a few cases, guilt. Principal Collins sat near the front, shoulders rigid, eyes hollow. To his left, the Walsh and Lennox parents whispered furiously in huddled tones, and at the opposite end, Judge Helena Ward sat with dignified silence, Zuri beside her, protective and alert. The murmurs quieted as Councilwoman Reyes, the head of the disciplinary panel, cleared her throat. "We're here today," she began, voice cutting through the air like a blade, "to determine accountability regarding the incident involving Judge Helena Ward on school grounds." Her gaze swept the room. "All relevant parties are present. Let us begin." Collins rose from his chair so abruptly it screeched across the floor. "Thank you, Councilwoman," he said, nerves rattling under his forced composure. "I feel it is crucial to clarify that this situation has been exaggerated beyond its factual context." Several council members lifted eyebrows. Collins forged ahead. "While the video circulating online is concerning," he continued, "it doesn't show the full picture. It omits crucial context." Helena did not move. Zuri clenched her jaw. "Context?" Reyes echoed slowly. "Such as?" Collins gestured stiffly toward Zuri. "Such as her involvement." A chilling quiet fell. Zuri's eyes widened. "Me?" Collins nodded. "Yes, it is possible, given her history of conflict with the students involved, that she may have provoked or escalated tensions leading to the incident." Mrs. Walsh nodded eagerly. "Exactly," Derek said. "She was disrespectful. Kids don't attack adults for no reason." "Mr. Lennox added arrogantly, "My daughter told me Zuri frequently attitude checks other students. Perhaps she incited this event." A low murmur rippled through the room. Helena's chair scraped softly as she stood. "Are you?" she said, her voice a steady storm, "suggesting that my daughter's existence is provocation enough for assault?" Collins swallowed. I'm merely stating." "You are grasping at excuses," Helena said, "to hide the fact that you failed in your duty to protect students and a guest on your campus." Reyes turned to Collins. "Principal Collins, if you have evidence to support your accusation, present it now." Collins hesitated. Mr. Walsh stepped in desperately. "We have Derek's statement," he said. Zuri mouthed off earlier and Reyes held up a hand. "A student's verbal claim is not evidence." The room tightened. Collins pulled in a breath, sweat forming along his hairline. "There were other students. Where are they?" Reyes asked sharply. No answer. Slowly, Helena sat back down. Her silence said more than any speech. The council exchanged glances. Collins's argument was unraveling. But Collins wasn't done. He stepped forward again and shoved both hands on the table. "This entire incident is being distorted by a single, manipulated video," he proclaimed. "Social media has blown it out of proportion. The original content was clearly edited." A few council members nodded uncertainly. Collins continued, voice rising. And unless we see the raw footage, with full context, I insist we cannot make any definitive judgment. We must be cautious. The timing couldn't have been more ironic, because, at that exact moment, the boardroom door opened with a soft click. Every head turned. Kai stepped inside. Small, nervous, quiet, but holding something that made him look 10 feet tall. His phone. Reyes frowned. "And you are?" Kai swallowed. I'm Kai Nakamura. I'm the student who recorded the video." Whispers pulsed across the room. Collins stiffened. Walsh and Lennox families tensed. Helena's eyes flashed with understanding. Kai stepped forward. "And I have the original file, unedited, unaltered, full length." Collins paled. That's impossible. That video was posted anonymously." "I know," Kai said softly. "I posted it." You could hear the air leave the room. He glanced nervously at Helena. I couldn't let what happened stay hidden." Reyes gestured. "Please come forward." Kai walked to the center of the table, his hands trembling slightly as he connected his phone to the display monitor. A moment later, the room darkened. The screen flickered, and the raw footage began to play. There was no music, no editing, no cuts, just reality. And it was devastating. Derek rising from his seat, Aubrey cheering him on, Helena speaking with calm authority, the clipper buzzing, hair falling, Zuri screaming at the door. But the worst moment, the moment that changed everything, came 32 seconds in. The camera caught Principal Collins clearly, turning, looking down the hall, placing his hand on the knob, locking the door. The metallic click echoed across the boardroom speakers. Gasps erupted. One council member whispered in horror, "He locked her in." Collins staggered backward. It's not. It was safety protocol. Reyes's voice sliced him apart. "Principal Collins, you locked a federal judge inside a room where a violent act was unfolding." Collins stammered. "I didn't know, I didn't see." Kai spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "You looked right at Derek. You saw the clipper. You let it happen." The room erupted into overlapping shouts. "Unacceptable. Endangerment. This is criminal negligence. How long has he been covering for them?" Reyes slammed her gavel onto the table. "Order." Silence crashed down again. She turned to Helena. "Judge Ward, do you have any additional evidence you wish to present?" Helena shook her head gently. "No," she said. "The truth has spoken for itself." Reyes inhaled slowly, then looked at Collins with absolute authority. "Principal Collins, until further notice, you are suspended from duty pending a full investigation." Collins slumped into his chair, face ashen. Mr. Walsh surged forward. "Wait, what about Derek? He's the real victim here." Reyes raised her hand sharply. "The only victims here are Judge Ward and her daughter, and by extension, every student who relies on this school for safety." She turned to the council. "We will now open a formal internal investigation, effective immediately." Zuri exhaled, relief and emotion swirling in one trembling breath. Helena placed a hand on her daughter's back. "It's happening," she whispered. "The truth is finally breaking through." Kai stepped back, unsure, anxious. Helena turned toward him and smiled. "Thank you, Kai. What you did today took courage." Kai lowered his gaze, cheeks flushing. "I just did what was right." And for the first time since the incident, the balance of power shifted away from corrupt authority and toward the truth Kai had exposed. As the boardroom emptied and the news spread like lightning, the district announced the next step. A full-scale investigation into Westridge High and Principal Collins would be the first under review, unleashes the real scandal. Principal Collins's office, normally pristine, orderly, and meticulously curated, felt claustrophobic this morning. The blinds were half closed, cutting harsh stripes of light across the room. Dust motes floated in beams that suddenly looked incriminating, as if even the air itself had turned against him. The desk where he once sat with pride, signing awards, welcoming new teachers, smiling for newsletters, now held only tension. And fear, lots of fear. Collins sat stiffly in his leather chair, his hands clamped on the armrests, knuckles pale. Opposite him sat District Attorney Lawson, a man whose calm presence felt more intimidating than shouting ever could. Beside him, Judge Helena Ward observed quietly, her expression unreadable. A recorder lay on Collins's desk. Its red light blinked. Waiting, D.A. Lawson leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Collins, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We'll keep this straightforward." Collins forced a smile so tight it looked painful. "Of course, I want complete transparency." Helena's eyes flicked toward him, not with anger, but with something far worse, judgment. Lawson folded his hands. "We're here regarding your role in the incident involving Judge Ward, the hair-cutting assault, and the allegations of negligence. To begin, did you lock the door to the mock courtroom?" Collins's lips twitched. I already explained. That clip is misleading. I was securing the room during the presentation." Helena spoke softly, but her tone sliced through him. "Mr. Collins, I felt the lock click. Your video showed you looking directly at my assailant with the weapon still in hand." Collins swallowed. "Yes. Well, security protocols." Lawson's eyebrow lifted. "Security protocols? Your own handbook explicitly forbids locking any classroom during student activity unless there's a live safety threat." Collins flinched. It was chaotic. Students could interrupt." Helena tilted her head. "You locked me inside the chaos." A chill crept up Collins's spine. Lawson tapped his pen. "Let's be absolutely clear. Did you or did you not see Derek Walsh holding clippers before you locked the door?" Collins hesitated a moment too long. I didn't. I wasn't sure." Helena leaned forward. "You hesitated just now the same way you did on video. Because you did see." Collins's breathing quickened. He tugged at his collar, sweating. "Look," he said, voice cracking. "Students pull dumb pranks all the time. I thought it was harmless." "Cutting a woman's hair is not a prank," Helena said sharply. "Locking her in a room with aggressors is not negligence, it is complicity." Collins's jaw trembled. Lawson slid a folder across the desk. "And complicity isn't the only issue, Mr. Collins." Collins blinked. What is this?" "Financial disclosures." He stiffened. Helena watched closely. Lawson opened the folder, revealing a series of spreadsheets, transaction logs, and emails printed in chronological order. "We compared Westridge's funding history with discretionary spending. It appears the school received several unregistered private donations over the course of 6 years." Collins exhaled shakily. What are you implying?" "That these funds," Lawson continued calmly, "came directly from Mr. Lennox, Aubrey's father." Collins's eyes widened. That money was for school improvements, supplies, technology," Helena interjected. "Then why wasn't it reported to the district? Why was it funneled through your personal discretionary account?" The room fell silent. Collins's breath hitched. This was the moment he realized they knew everything. Lawson pushed the final document forward, a printed email. From Lennox@boardoffice.gov to pcollins@westridge.edu. Subject: Pressure Peter. Just a reminder, our agreement stands. Ensure Aubrey faces no disciplinary consequences this year. She has college applications soon. The donation should help with your renovation project. Keep this between us." Helena's gaze didn't move from Collins's face. "You were bought," she said quietly, "and your loyalty to that family outweighed your responsibility to protect the children under your care." Collins shook his head violently. "No, I never. This isn't. He's twisting the truth." Lawson leaned back, tone unchanged. "The district has already verified the bank transfers. Mr. Lennox paid you to shield his daughter," Helena added. "And in doing so, you emboldened her to believe she could treat anyone, including me, with impunity." Collins's shoulders collapsed inward, like a building losing its foundation. He whispered, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Helena's voice sharpened. "Corruption always begins that way, with small compromises, small lies, small acts of turning away." Collins stared at his hands, at the recorder, At the blinking red light capturing his career's final breaths, Lawson closed the folder. Mr. Collins, given the proof of financial misconduct, paired with evidence of your role in the assault incident, the district has decided to take immediate action. Collins looked up desperately. Action? What action? Lawson's words came out clean, cold, and absolute. You are hereby suspended indefinitely pending a criminal investigation. The room froze. Collins's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Suspended. Indefinitely. His life's work gone within seconds. Helena rose slowly, gathering her belongings with calm precision. Justice doesn't fail, she said softly. It simply waits for the right moment to be seen. Collins reached out a trembling hand toward her. Judge Ward, please, you have to understand, I did what I thought would keep things smooth. I was trying to avoid scandal. Helena paused at the doorway. Then she looked at him, not with vengeance, but with truth. You avoided scandal by enabling harm. You protected reputation instead of protecting children. And now, you will answer for both. Her words struck him harder than any gavel could. Lawson stood as well. An interim principal will be appointed. Pack your office. Security will escort you. Collins felt the room spin. He couldn't answer. He couldn't breathe. His career, his status, his false sense of power, all collapsing in one morning. Outside the office, students gathered in clusters, buzzing, whispering, phones out. The video had reached new heights. News vans crowded the parking lot. Reporters pushed past security gates. And now, the principal himself was walking toward the exit, pale, defeated, escorted by 2 campus officers. Someone gasped. Another snapped a photo. A teacher muttered, I never thought I'd see the day. Students whispered, Is that the principal? He's being removed. What did he do? Everything. Zuri watched from down the hall with a mix of awe and vindication. Her mother approached beside her, steady and strong. Collins stumbled past them, unable to meet their eyes. For the first time since the incident, Zuri exhaled a breath that didn't hurt. This wasn't just a bullying scandal anymore. It was corruption systemic, deliberate, and finally exposed. And Westridge High had only begun to unravel. With Collins gone and the district launching a full investigation, the case shifted to the next stage, legal intervention. The courtroom would no longer be a classroom. It would be real. When the courtroom stops being symbolic and becomes real, the Riverside County Courthouse towered over the city, like a monument carved out of history and authority. Its white stone columns reflected the morning sun, and the glass doors shimmered beneath the weight of countless verdicts rendered within its walls. Today, those same doors opened for Judge Helena Ward, not to preside over a case, but to become the case. Zuri walked beside her mother, gripping a folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. Helena carried nothing in her hands, but the weight on her shoulders was heavier than any file. Inside, the courthouse buzzed with a rare blend of outrage and anticipation. Security officers murmured to each other. Secretaries tapped nervously at their keyboards. Even attorneys paused mid-stride to whisper, Is that Judge Ward? Is this about that school incident? I heard the principal lock the door. Helena and Zuri reached the district attorney's office. They were met by D.A. Ramirez, a sharp-eyed prosecutor known for dismantling corruption with surgical precision. He greeted Helena with deep respect. Judge Ward, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Please come in. They entered a conference room where a screen, a laptop, and several sealed evidence envelopes awaited. Helena set the evidence folder on the table. I'm submitting everything, she said calmly. The full video, written statements, and email records confirming Principal Collins ignored multiple behavioral warnings. Ramirez leaned forward. Let me see the video first. Zuri opened her phone and transferred the original file. The room fell silent as the footage played across the screen. Derek. Rising. Helena speaking. The clipper buzzing. Hair falling. The locked door. The unmistakable click. Collins glancing at the hallway and turning the key. Ramirez's expression hardened as the video continued. When it ended, he sat back slowly, breath unsteady. "Jesus," he whispered. "This isn't school misconduct. This isn't bullying." His eyes locked onto Helena's. "This is unlawful detainment. This is failure to protect. This is the deliberate endangerment of a federal judge." He clenched his jaw, voice dropping to a low growl. "And it will not be ignored." For a moment, Zuri felt her chest lighten. Someone finally understood the full gravity of what happened. Ramirez opened the evidence envelope containing the email from Mr. Lennox. He scanned it, face tightening. "And now we have corruption," he muttered. "A principal accepting unreported funds from a board member whose daughter repeatedly violates conduct rules." He shut the file sharply. This case just went from a school scandal to a political earthquake. Before Helena could respond, a staffer burst into the room. "Sir, you need to see this," she said breathlessly. "The media, they're everywhere." They followed her to the courthouse steps. A wall of cameras and microphones stretched across the plaza like an army waiting for a signal. Reporters called out instantly. "Judge Ward, do you plan to press charges? Is it true your hair was cut against your will? Did the school system try to silence you? Are you stepping back from the bench during the investigation?" Helena stood tall. Even with half her braided crown damaged, she radiated strength. Zuri watched her mother inhale a slow, steady breath, and then take a step toward the sea of cameras. Flashbulbs exploded. Microphones pushed forward. The nation focused in. Helena raised her chin. Her voice carried like thunder wrapped in calm steel. "If justice is not being taught in our schools, then I will teach it in the courthouse." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Yes, Judge!" Another voice, "We stand with you." The energy shifted instantly. The city, its parents, activists, lawyers, community leaders rallied behind her. Within minutes, Helena's words trended across every major platform. Justice for Judge Ward. Number, hold the school accountable. Protect our students inside the courthouse. Ramirez was already on the phone, voice sharp and commanding. "I want subpoenas drafted today. I want the school board president's financials, and I want statements from every student present. No delays, move." Zuri felt a strange emotion flood her chest, something between relief and vindication. After days of silence, fear, and humiliation, the law was finally on their side. As they prepared to leave the courthouse, Ramirez approached them again. "Judge Ward," he said gravely, "based on the evidence you've provided, I'm issuing formal summonses for Derek Walsh and Aubrey Lennox. They will appear in juvenile court tomorrow morning." Zuri's heart pounded. "Tomorrow?" she whispered. Ramirez nodded. "Yes, and it will not be optional." Helena placed a gentle hand on her daughter's back. "This is how justice begins," she said softly. Outside, the press continued to roar Helena's name. Inside, subpoenas were printed. Across the city, people prepared to witness the reckoning. For the first time, the Bully families felt the ground shift beneath them, because Helena's fight was no longer personal. It was legal, it was public, and it was unstoppable. The next morning, Derek and Aubrey would walk into the courthouse thinking they understood the consequences, but the truth awaiting them would shatter every illusion they had left. When the bully finally understands the weight of his actions, the interrogation room inside Riverside County Juvenile Court was nothing like the noisy hallways of Westridge High. Here, sound didn't travel. Here, whispers carried the weight of law. Here, truth had nowhere to hide. The walls were bare, the lighting harsh and sterile, a cold white beam shining directly above the metal table where Derek Walsh sat with trembling hands. His parents flanked him Mr. Walsh, stiff with poorly disguised anger. Mrs. Walsh, pale and blinking rapidly as if she might faint. Across from them sat District Attorney Ramirez, a sealed case file before him, and the video cued on a government-issued tablet. Next to him, a juvenile defense consultant observed silently. The room hummed with silence. Finally, Ramirez pressed play. The room filled with the unmistakable reality Derek had tried so hard to outrun. His smirk, his taunts, the buzzing clippers, Helena's steady composure. the severed braid falling like a symbol of every boundary he'd crossed. And most damning of all, Principal Collins locking the door. The video ended. No one breathed. Derek stared at the table's reflection of his own face, ashen, hollow, cornered. Ramirez broke the silence first. "This," he said calmly, tapping the screen, "is the full, unedited recording. No cuts. No manipulation. No excuses." Derek swallowed, throat tight. His father leaned forward aggressively. "Look, this is out of context. He's a teenager. All this TikTok stuff, these stupid challenges they make. Kids do reckless things." Mrs. Walsh nodded, voice trembling. "He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just caught up in the moment." Ramirez didn't blink. "Your son," he said slowly, "attacked a judge." Derek winced as if struck. Mr. Walsh slammed his palm on the table. "He didn't know she was a judge." Ramirez leaned in, eyes sharp as a blade. "Assaulting anyone is a crime, Mr. Walsh. But assaulting a judicial officer, especially during a school event related to civics and justice, constitutes a federal offense." Silence fell again. Derek's breath turned shallow. His bravado, the swagger he carried through school halls, crumbled like dust. Mrs. Walsh whispered, What does that mean for him?" Ramirez opened the case file. "It means your son is currently eligible for charges including assault, harassment, and unlawful intimidation of a public officer." Mrs. Walsh burst into tears. Mr. Walsh's face drained of color. Derek looked between them, his mask finally breaking. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't charge me with all that." Ramirez closed the folder calmly. "Then you need to tell me the truth. All of it." Derek's lips trembled. He glanced at his parents seeking protection and found none. They were too stunned to defend him now. Ramirez slid the tablet toward Derek. "Start with this moment," he said, pausing on the frame where Derek raised the clippers. "Why did you do it?" Derek opened his mouth, but no words came. His father snapped, "Say you're sorry, son." But Ramirez held up a hand. "I don't want rehearsed apologies. I want the truth." Derek squeezed his eyes shut. For a moment he looked like a child, scared, alone, drowning in consequences he never imagined. Then it happened. The first crack in his arrogance. His breath shook, his shoulders slumped, and then a sob. Quiet at first, then broken. I didn't want to cut her hair," he cried. "I didn't want to do it." "Mrs. Walsh gasped, reaching for him, but Derek pulled away, words pouring out in a flood he could no longer control. "It was Aubrey," he choked. "She told me to do it. She said it would make everyone know we ran the school, that no one could stand up to us." He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "I said no at first. I swear I did." Ramirez watched silently. Derek continued, voice cracking, "But Aubrey, she said her dad would protect us, that he always has, that even Principal Collins listens to him. And I was scared. Scared of her. Scared of her father." Mr. Walsh turned sharply toward his wife, shock widening both their eyes. "You're telling me," Ramirez said slowly, "that Aubrey Lennox orchestrated the assault?" Derek nodded violently. "She planned everything. She brought the idea. She said it would go viral. She told me where the tongdo was sold. She told Collins not to worry because her dad owns half the district." His voice dissolved into tears again. "I was stupid. I thought she was my friend." Ramirez exchanged a look with his legal consultant. "This was bigger. Much bigger. And Collins?" Ramirez pressed. "What about him?" Derek wiped his face, shaking. He knew. He always knows. He ignores everything Aubrey does. He said if we wanted to teach someone a lesson, he'd handle any complaints from parents." Mr. Walsh froze. Mrs. Walsh covered her mouth. Ramirez leaned back, absorbing the magnitude of the confession. The reckless act of a teenager had just split open the truth. This wasn't bullying. This wasn't a prank. It was a system built from corruption. And Derek, spoiled, arrogant Derek, had just pulled the curtain back. Ramirez closed the folder with finality. "Mr. Walsh," he said calmly, Your son has just confirmed a conspiracy involving school administration, misuse of authority, and coordinated harassment, Derek whimpered. His mother whispered, "Oh my God." With Derek's confession, the case detonated in scope. Aubrey was no longer a participant, but the orchestrator, and Collins's corruption became undeniable. The investigation had just shifted onto a new central figure, Aubrey Lennox. As Derek left the room sobbing, Ramirez made a single phone call summoning Aubrey to testify, and for the first time in her life, she would face a truth even her powerful father couldn't shield her from. Even the powerful bleed when the truth finally hits them. The Lennox estate sat on a hill overlooking Riverside like a throne. Tall iron gates, manicured lawns, marble columns polished to perfection. But beneath the grandeur, the air inside the house was suffocating, thick with panic and secrets clawing their way to the surface. Aubrey sat on a leather couch in the living room, knees pulled to her chest. Her mascara had smeared into 2 dark streaks, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. For the first time in her privileged, untouchable life, she was truly afraid. Her father, Daniel Lennox, chairman of the school board, paced aggressively near the fireplace, his silk tie loosened, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This is a PR disaster," he snapped at the family attorney. "We end this today. I don't care what it costs." The attorney, an older man with cold eyes, nodded stiffly. "We can propose a settlement. Confidentiality clauses. We'll make sure the girl ward never says a word again." Aubrey's mother sat frozen on the edge of a chair, fingers clasped so tightly they turned white. "Maybe if we apologize—" "No," Lennox barked. "Apology is admission. We don't admit. We erase." He turned to the attorney again. "Prepare whatever documents you need. No one will mention Aubrey's name after today. We settle, we silence, we move on." A heavy knock broke through the tension. Before anyone could respond, the door opened, and D.A. Ramirez stepped inside, escorted by an officer. Lennox's confident smirk returned instantly. "D.A. Ramirez, I assume you're here to discuss terms." Ramirez set a thick folder on the polished table. "Actually," he said calmly, "I'm here to present you with this." Lennox's smile faltered as Ramirez opened the folder. "These," Ramirez continued, "are 7 years of unreported financial transfers from your personal accounts to Principal Collins." Aubrey gasped. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Ramirez turned another page. "And this is written confirmation that those payments bought your daughter disciplinary leniency, grade adjustments, and classroom privileges that violated district policy." Lennox's jaw clenched. "You have no right to barge into my home." "Oh, I have every right," Ramirez said, "because this isn't a school matter anymore. This is corruption, Mr. Lennox. This is bribery. This is manipulation of public education for personal gain." He looked directly at Aubrey. "And this system, your system, directly contributed to the assault on Judge Ward." Aubrey's breath hitched. Her eyes filled with tears she had tried to swallow for hours. "Dad, is all of this true?" she whispered. Lennox ignored her. "My daughter is a minor," he snapped. "She doesn't answer to you, and this so-called corruption was philanthropy, charitable support." Ramirez nodded slowly. "So you consider it charity to pay a principal to protect your daughter from consequences?" The attorney stepped forward. "We can negotiate. We propose a settlement." "There will be no settlement," Ramirez interrupted sharply. "There will be charges." Aubrey sobbed into her sleeve. Lennox turned to her sharply, tone harsh. "Stop crying. You're making this worse." But Aubrey looked up at him with something new in her eyes. Hurt, recognition, realization. "Worse?" she whispered. "You think I'm the one making it worse?" Her father stiffened. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stood shakily. "All my life, you told me we don't apologize. We don't lose. We don't let people beneath us stand in our way." She wiped her cheek with trembling fingers. "You taught me that power gets you whatever you want, Aubrey," her mother whispered. Aubrey shook her head, voice breaking. "I only did what you taught me. Use power, use fear, use influence. If someone gets in the way, crush them. Lennox's face drained of color. D.A. Ramirez folded his arms. So, you're saying your father encouraged this behavior? Aubrey choked out a single, devastating answer. Yes. Silence detonated across the room. Her mother looked shattered. The attorney looked horrified. Lennox's composure finally cracked. You are destroying your future, he roared. Everything I built, you're tearing it apart. Aubrey fired back through her tears. Maybe it deserves to fall. Ramirez's voice cut through like a verdict. Miss Lennox, did you instruct Principal Collins to lock the door during the incident? Aubrey's legs almost buckled. She nodded. I told him, she admitted in a whisper. I told Collins that if he kept people out, my dad would cover for him. But the Tong Do. She shook her head violently. Derek brought it. He said it'd make us famous. He said Ramirez held up a hand. That's enough, Lennox sputtered. She's lying. She's trying to protect herself. But Ramirez slowly set down the final piece of evidence, a small recording device. He pressed play. Collins's voice came through first. Don't worry. Mr. Lennox said he'll handle everything. Just keep that door shut. Then Lennox's voice. Make sure she learns not to challenge my daughter. Do you understand? Aubrey collapsed into the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Her mother whispered, horrified, Daniel, what have you done? Ramirez turned toward the exit, his job complete. With Kai's recording, the last shield protecting the Lennox family shattered. Power meant nothing now. Influence meant nothing. The truth stood alone, and it was damning. The district called for a full school disciplinary hearing. Every witness, every piece of evidence, every lie would face judgment. The final battle was about to begin. The day Westridge High faced the truth. The Westridge Auditorium had never been this full. Every seat was taken. Parents lined the walls. Students perched along the aisles. Reporters filled the back rows, cameras raised like an army of unblinking eyes. At the center sat the disciplinary council, papers stacked before them like legal ammunition. To one side sat Helena Ward, calm and composed despite the uneven cut of her braids. Zuri sat beside her, fingers intertwined with her mother's. Across the aisle sat Derek, pale and hollow. Aubrey, trembling beneath layers of expensive clothing. And Collins, the former principal, hands clasped tightly as though prayer could rewrite the past. The room hummed with tension. Councilwoman Reyes rose. Today, we address the violations committed within this school, acts of violence, corruption, manipulation, and endangerment. We begin with the findings. A hush blanketed the hall. The verdicts. Reyes lifted the first document. Derek Walsh, found responsible for assaulting and humiliating a judicial officer, engaging in violent misconduct, and creating a hostile learning environment. Gasps rippled across the room. Recommended consequence: mandatory transfer to an alternative disciplinary school, with permanent record annotation. Derek's mother sobbed. Derek stared at the floor, motionless. Reyes continued. Aubrey Lennox, found responsible for orchestration, coercion, and manipulation contributing to the assault, including instructing staff to bar entry. Aubrey buried her face in her hands. Consequence: 1-year suspension, loss of leadership privileges, and referral to juvenile counseling. Furthermore, Reyes paused, the weight of the moment heavy. Her father, Daniel Lennox, faces criminal prosecution for bribery, corruption, and educational interference. A lightning bolt of shock tore through the audience. Aubrey's mother collapsed into a chair. Aubrey let out a sound between a sob and a gasp. Then Reyes turned to the final page. Peter Collins, former principal, found responsible for unethical conduct, unlawful detainment, endangerment of a minor and a judicial officer, and acceptance of unreported payments from a school board member. Collins shut his eyes. Consequence: immediate termination and formal referral to state authorities. The audience erupted. Some gasped. Some whispered prayers. Most applauded loud, fierce, cathartic applause that rolled through the auditorium like thunder. Helena did not move. She rose only when Reyes gestured to her. "Judge Ward, would you like to address the council?" The room fell silent instantly. Helena stepped forward. Her posture was regal, her voice clear and steady. "I have seen many kinds of injustice in my courtroom, but what happened here was not just an assault on me, it was an assault on the values this school claims to teach." Every eye in the auditorium locked on her. "I do not seek revenge," she said softly. "Revenge is loud, angry, and empty. I seek justice because justice restores what was broken, and it teaches what must never be repeated." Students leaned forward, teachers wiped their eyes, parents nodded. Helena's gaze swept across the faces before her. Let this be the moment Westridge changes. Not because a judge demanded it, but because a community refused to look away. Thunderous applause erupted again, louder this time, echoing off the walls, filling the air with a sense of renewal. Zuri turned to her mother. For the first time, she didn't just see the judge. She saw the woman resilient, wounded, fighting, standing tall despite everything. Her hero. As the applause swelled, Zuri squeezed her mother's hand, seeing strength, yes, but also a rare, quiet vulnerability. For the first time, Helena looked both unbreakable and profoundly human. The next morning, standing together before the mirror, mother and daughter would make a decision, one that would transform the pain into something powerful, something iconic, where pain becomes legacy and dignity becomes a movement. The bell over the door jingled softly as Helena Ward stepped into the small barber shop on Maple Street, a modest corner shop with warm lights, old jazz drifting from a dusty radio, and the faint scent of shea butter and aftershave lingering in the air. Zuri followed closely behind her mother. The space was humble, just 3 chairs, a collection of framed photos along the walls, and the comforting hum of clippers being oiled by the shop owner, Miss Tasha. A woman with kind eyes and silver braids coiled down her back. Tasha looked up the moment Helena entered. The smile on her face was gentle, but it faltered when she saw Helena's uneven, jagged braids, the cruel evidence of what had been taken from her. "Oh, honey," Tasha whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "Who did this to you?" Helena didn't flinch, didn't hide, didn't lower her eyes. She simply walked to the barber chair and sat down with a quiet dignity that filled the whole room. Zuri placed a trembling hand on her mother's shoulder. Tasha stepped closer, touching the damaged ends with careful fingers. "Baby, I can fix this. I can blend it out, rebraid it tight, make it look like it never happened." Helena lifted her gaze in the mirror. Her reflection stared back, strong, tired, but alive. "No," she said softly. "Don't fix it." Tasha blinked. "What do you mean?" Helena inhaled deeply, her voice steady. "I don't want it repaired. I want it cut." Zuri's breath caught. "Mama," but Helena continued, eyes never leaving her own reflection. "They tried to humiliate me by taking part of my crown," she said, "so I'm choosing to take the rest on my own terms." Tasha placed a hand over her heart. "Are you sure?" Helena nodded. "I want it cut, all of it." There was power in the words, calm, deliberate, reclaiming. Zuri stepped forward, tears gathering in her eyes. "Mama, you don't have to do this." Helena reached up and gently squeezed her daughter's fingers. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "they tried to decide what strength looks like for me, but only I get to choose that." Zuri swallowed hard, nodding as her eyes glistened. Tasha ran her fingers through the uneven strands one more time, then picked up the clippers. The soft buzz filled the room like a quiet prelude to transformation. "You tell me when you're ready, Judge Ward." Helena lifted her chin. "I'm ready." The first pass of the clippers sliced through the air and through the remnants of what had been taken. Long braids fell to the floor in spirals, each drop sounding like a soft exhale, like something heavy being released. The room was silent, except for the hum of the machine. Zuri watched with trembling lips, her eyes burning. But beneath the ache, a new emotion swelled, pride, pure, fierce pride. Her mother wasn't just reclaiming her hair, she was reclaiming the narrative, reclaiming her dignity, reclaiming her power. By the time Tasha finished, Helena's hair was cropped close, clean, sharp, elegant, radiating strength in its simplicity. Helena touched her head lightly, feeling the newness, the liberation. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Tasha said, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for showing us what strength looks like." As Helena and Zuri stepped onto the sidewalk, the afternoon sun spilled across them, and a small crowd of students and parents waiting outside erupted into applause. They hadn't been summoned. They weren't asked to come. They came because a symbol had risen and they wanted to witness it. Phones lifted. Voices rose. "Judge Ward! We love you." Number, Judge Ward rises. The hashtag was already flashing across screens, photos spreading from student group chats to community pages to national social media channels. A young girl stepped forward, holding a handmade sign, "Your strength is our lesson." Helena's breath caught. Another student shouted, "You showed us what courage looks like." A boy near the back called out, "Thank you for standing up for us." Helena blinked away the burn behind her eyes. This wasn't praise. This was solidarity. Zuri squeezed her mother's hand tightly as they walked through the cheering crowd. The noise wasn't overwhelming, it was uplifting, a shield of sound that wrapped around them like armor. Helena paused on the curb, turning to face the students completely. Zuri watched, feeling that her mother was about to say something she would remember for the rest of her life. Helena spoke not loudly, but with clarity that cut through every voice. "No one," she said, "takes your dignity unless you hand it to them." The cheers quieted, giving her full space. "No one decides your worth unless you let them." Then she turned to Zuri and took her daughter's hands in both of hers. Her final words carried the weight of truth, pain, love, and unshakable resolve. "No one will ever take your dignity, Zuri. No one will ever take mine. Not now, not ever again." Zuri's tears fell freely, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of pride, of healing, of transformation. She wrapped her arms around her mother as the crowd erupted again, chanting Helena's name. That night, as mother and daughter stood before their bathroom mirror, two reflections reshaped by fire and courage, they understood something deep and unspoken. The battle was won, but the war for justice, for safer schools, for accountability, it was only beginning, and this time they would fight it together. This moment marked more than an ending. It marked the beginning of a mission that would challenge and change the entire system. And just like that, the kids who thought they ruled the school learned a truth they'll never forget. You can terrorize a hallway, you can hide behind privilege, but you cannot outrun justice, especially when the woman you harmed wears the robe that delivers it. Their laughter turned to panic, their swagger collapsed into silence, and every excuse crumbled the moment the truth came out. But now I want to hear from you. What part of this story shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story hit you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next fight for justice.